If you've watched this channel, you'll know that I love the Italian language. I don't think I need to stress that anymore. But nonetheless, there is something that I wish Italian conserved, as well as Spanish, and especially Portuguese did from Latin. What I'm referring to here is the Latin adverbial clause mecum or tecum, or even secum. These were different ways of expressing that an action was done with someone else. In Latin, for example, I might say, veni mecum, come with me, or pax tecum, peace be with you, pax vobiscum, peace be with you, or you get the idea at this point. And Spanish, and especially Portuguese, conserve that pretty well. That's where the modern Spanish conmigo comes from. In Spanish, interestingly enough, you see the positions of the preposition and the object pronoun inverted. It's conmigo as opposed to mi con or something like that. The same thing with contigo and the much more rarely used consigo. Conmigo with me, contigo with you, consigo with him or her. Right? And Portuguese, interestingly enough, I didn't know this much beforehand, but Portuguese has done a very good job at conserving forms for all of these. There's, of course, conmigo, contigo, and consigo. Forgive my Portuguese pronunciation there. I'm open for corrections in the comments below. But in addition to that, there is still conosco, which apparently isn't used much in European Portuguese, but still exists in Brazilian Portuguese. Let me know if that's the case down in the comments below. And there's also convosco. Getting back to the opening of this video, it's peculiar given that this is conserved so well in Iberian Romance that Italian doesn't really have it. We don't really have an expression for this in Italian, at least not a single word that expresses what a whole adverbial clause would. If I wanted to say, you are coming with me, for example, in Italian, I would say, vieni con me. And what makes this particularly interesting is that it wasn't always the case. Medieval Tuscan conserved some form of this adverbial clause that comes directly from the Latin mecum, tecum. And you don't even have to look very far to find attestation for it. Boccaccio uses it a lot in the Decameron. And if I'm not mistaken, it's also in the Divine Comedy. I'll put some examples on the screen here. But to my knowledge, it no longer exists in modern Italian. And I wonder why. They say that standard style, good style, is usually the style of respected authors. And it's certainly true that if you make the jump from the Decameron all the way to I Promessi Sposi, written by Alessandro Manzoni in the 19th century, we actually don't see any instances of meco or teco, as we saw in medieval Tuscan. Unless I'm mistaken. What's even more interesting is that in the relatively brief span between the 1300s and the 1500s, it seems as though the form disappeared. I haven't come across examples of Cinquecento writing in Italian that actually used meco and teco, at least not consciously. Maybe I haven't remembered them after reading them, but maybe some of you can help me out there as well. I'm quite curious as to why this disappeared so rapidly in Italian. What was the process? Does it have something perhaps to do with the Venetian printing boom, the sort of standardization that took place in Italian from the 1450s onwards as Venetian printers started to standardize and further construct the bases of what we would consider modern Italian as they were putting out classic texts in the language? I'm curious as to your thoughts in this, and I'd also like to know if there are other Romance languages that still have some kind of form of this adverb. Does it exist in Romanian? Perhaps it's still in Catalan in some form. I'd like to hear from you guys in the comments below. I'm going to say very sorry for the very late hour I've recorded this, and I hope to see you in the next video. Arrivederci, adeus, and adios.